I've noticed something that contradicts everything we've been taught. The smartest people I know are often broke. The most intelligent people struggle financially. Meanwhile, some of the most ordinary, boring people I know are building serious wealth. This shouldn't be possible. We've been told that intelligence leads to success, that IQ is destiny, that smarter people do better in life. But that's not what I'm observing in the real world. In fact, I think intelligence might actually be a disadvantage when it comes to building wealth. And I know that sounds crazy. But by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this is true. The smartest people in the world, brilliant scientists, talented engineers, gifted mathematicians, often struggle with money their entire lives, while people of average intelligence build empires. This isn't luck. This isn't chance. This is a predictable pattern born from how intelligent people think differently than average people, and not in a good way when it comes to money. Today, I'm going to explain the 7 reasons why smart people end up poor while boring people end up rich. And I'm going to show you how to take the best parts of both approaches. Because the goal isn't to be smart or boring. The goal is to be wealthy. And those are 2 completely different things. The first reason is overthinking. This is the classic problem of the intelligent person. Intelligence gives you the ability to see problems from every angle. You can identify complications that others miss. You can foresee potential issues that ordinary people don't even consider. This is valuable in research. This is valuable in academics. This is valuable in engineering. It's terrible for building wealth. Here's how it typically works. A smart person has an investment idea. They start researching. They read articles. They study the market. They read books about investing. They take courses. They learn about tax implications. They study historical market data. They create spreadsheets. They model different scenarios. They think about what could go wrong. Then they think about what could go wrong with that. Then they think about edge cases nobody else considers. 6 months later, they still haven't invested. The market has gone up 15%. They missed it because they were still thinking. A boring person has the same investment idea. They spend 30 minutes researching. They open a brokerage account. They buy an index fund. They forget about it. 2 years later, they're up 28%. Same market, different approach. Same result. Smart person is behind. The intelligent person's brain is a prediction machine. It's designed to see problems. And the more intelligent you are, the more problems your brain can generate. This is called analysis paralysis. And it's one of the biggest killers of wealth. Because wealth isn't built by perfect analysis. Wealth is built by action. Boring people understand this intuitively. They're not brilliant enough to foresee all the problems. So they just start. They act. And through action, they learn. Through action, they make progress. The boring person's advantage is that their brain doesn't generate endless complications. They think, should I invest? Brain says, yes. They invest. Done. Meanwhile, the smart person thinks, should I invest? brain says, well, it depends on market conditions, your tax situation, your time horizon, your risk tolerance, historical volatility patterns. 6 months later, still thinking. This is why successful entrepreneurs are often not the smartest people in the room. They're the people willing to act despite uncertainty. Because certainty doesn't exist. Intelligent people wait for certainty. Boring people act despite uncertainty. And over time, the boring person compounds wealth, while the smart person is still analyzing. Smart people are attracted to complex solutions. Intelligence is rewarded for complexity in academic settings. The more complex your analysis, the more impressive you seem. The harder you work, the smarter you appear. But wealth building isn't rewarded for complexity. Wealth building is rewarded for simplicity. A smart person learns about investing and thinks, I'll study individual stocks. I'll analyze financial statements. I'll use technical analysis. I'll track market correlations. I'll use leverage strategically. 10 years later, they've underperformed the market. A boring person learns about investing and thinks, I'll buy an index fund. I'll contribute monthly. I'll not look at it. 10 years later, they've beaten 95% of professional investors. Same market, different approaches. The boring person's index fund is so simple, it almost seems stupid. And that's exactly why it works. Because the simple system is not trying to beat the market. It's just trying to participate in the market's long-term growth. It removes emotion. It removes the need to predict the future. It removes complexity. And that removal of complexity is exactly what makes it effective. Smart people can't help themselves. They see an opportunity to be clever. They see a way to get an edge. They create complex strategies. And complex strategies require constant management. They require perfect execution. One mistake and the whole thing falls apart. Boring systems don't require perfection. They require consistency. A boring person can execute a boring system perfectly for 30 years because it's so simple. A smart person creates a complex system, gets bored, makes a mistake, abandons it, and starts over with something new. This is why Warren Buffett, one of the smartest investors ever, uses the most boring investment strategy possible. He buys good companies at fair prices and holds them forever. Decades later, he's one of the wealthiest people on earth. Not through complexity, through simplicity. The paradox is that boring people often make better decisions than smart people because their brain isn't trying to be clever. Their brain is just trying to follow the system. And systems, when followed consistently, create results that look miraculous over time. But they're not miraculous. They're just boring. And boring works. Here's something important about intelligence. It correlates with low boredom tolerance. Smart people need stimulation. They get bored easily. They constantly want new challenges, new problems to solve. This is great for innovation. It's terrible for wealth building, because wealth is built through boring repetition. You make the same boring investment every month for 30 years. You follow the same boring system every single day for decades. You do the same boring job, increasing your income for years. Boring repetition at scale creates wealth. But intelligent people can't tolerate boredom. So they constantly change strategies. They get into crypto because it's exciting. Then they get into real estate because it's new. Then they try Forex trading because it's complex. They jump from strategy to strategy, chasing novelty, never staying with anything long enough for compound growth to work. Boring people lack the intelligence to see all the alternatives. So they stick with one strategy. They do it consistently. And because they do it consistently for a long time, it works. The wealth isn't from the strategy being perfect. The wealth is from consistency applied over time. I've noticed this pattern repeatedly. Smart people in their 40s are often less wealthy than boring people of the same age. Why? Because the boring person did the same boring thing for 20 years and it compounded. The smart person did 15 different things and never let any of them compound. Compound growth requires time, and compound growth requires consistency. Smart people's impatience works against them. Boring people's lack of imagination works in their favor. A boring person thinks, "I'll do this boring thing every day for the rest of my life." That single boring decision creates more wealth than a smart person's 20 clever strategies. Because the smart person's strategies might be better individually, but they're never applied long enough to work. Here's the formula. Boring strategy plus 30 years of consistency equals incomprehensible wealth. Smart strategy plus constant changes equals moderate results. Most people choose smart strategy because it feels good. Feels like you're doing something. Feels like you're being clever. But you're not building wealth. You're just feeling smart. Meanwhile, the boring person is quietly building a fortune through consistency. Smart people have a need to understand why. Before they'll commit to something, they need to comprehend the mechanism. They need the logic. They need to know why it works. This sounds good, but it's often paralyzing. A boring person is told, "Put your money in an index fund and contribute monthly for 30 years." They don't need to understand how it works. They don't need the mechanism explained. They don't need the theory. They just do it. A smart person is told the same thing and says, "But why does it work? What about market crashes? What about inflation? What if the market doesn't recover? What are the assumptions?" And they want answers. Real answers. Deep understanding. Nothing less. So they research, and research, and research. And while they're researching, they're not investing. Meanwhile, the boring person invested 3 years ago and is already compounding. The smart person's need for understanding actually becomes a barrier to action. Because true understanding requires time, and time spent understanding is time not spent building. Additionally, smart people often reject strategies they don't fully understand, even if they work. They'll say, "I don't trust it because I don't understand it." But boring people will say, "Millions of people do this. I'll do it too." The boring person trusts the wisdom of crowds. The smart person needs personal verification. The boring person's trust in the crowd often outweighs their need for perfect understanding. And that trust, combined with action, often produces better results than the smart person's perfect understanding combined with hesitation. Here's the thing. You don't need to understand how your phone works to use it successfully. You don't need to understand all the mechanisms of wealth building to build wealth. You just need to follow a proven system. But smart people can't do that. They need to understand. And that need delays their progress. A boring person can follow a system they don't fully understand because they trust it. A smart person needs to understand before they'll follow. And by the time they understand, the opportunity has often passed. The irony is that the smartest people often have the least wealth relative to their potential, because they spent all that intelligence trying to understand something they could have just done. This is subtle but powerful. Smart people have confidence in their own intelligence. So when they encounter a problem, they think they can solve it. They create their own system. They trust their own analysis. They follow their own logic. This seems smart, but it's often disastrous. Because one person's intelligence is no match for the collective intelligence of millions of people over centuries. A boring person doesn't trust themselves. They're not confident in their own intelligence. So they trust systems that have been proven by millions of people over time. They buy the boring index fund that millions have bought. They follow the boring system that millions have followed. They don't try to be clever. They just participate in a system that works. And that system works because it's been tested by millions of people for decades. A smart person creates their own system. They think they can outsmart the market. They think they can pick better stocks. They think they can time it perfectly. And they usually can't. Because the market is the collective intelligence of millions of traders with access to the same information. Your intelligence alone can't beat that. But boring people don't try to beat it. They just participate in it. And participation beats trying to beat it almost every time. Here's the mathematical reality. The S&P 500 index has beaten 95% of professional investors over 15-year periods. Professional investors whose job is investing, with teams of analysts, with sophisticated tools, still beaten by the boring index. A smart person looks at this data and thinks, I can be in the 5% that beats it. A boring person looks at the same data and thinks, I'll just join the 95% that participates. The boring person ends up wealthier because they're not fighting against impossible odds. They're cooperating with proven systems. Smart people's confidence in their own intelligence often leads them to fight against systems that have been proven for centuries, and they lose. The smartest investors I know, the ones who really crush it, have learned to trust the system more than they trust themselves. They've realized that their intelligence is best used not for beating the system, but for following the system perfectly, for not deviating, for not getting cute, for maintaining discipline when their intelligence is screaming at them to try something clever. But they resist that urge, and because they resist it, they win. Smart people often have perfectionist tendencies. They want their analysis to be perfect. They want their strategy to be perfect. They want their execution to be perfect. This sounds good, but it's often paralyzing. A boring person is okay with good enough. They'll start a business with a website that's 80% done. A smart person will spend 2 years perfecting it. The boring person's imperfect business is generating revenue. The smart person's perfect business doesn't exist yet. A boring person will start investing with a basic strategy that works. A smart person will wait until they have the perfect strategy. Meanwhile, the boring person is compounding. The perfect is the enemy of the good, and the good is the enemy of done. Smart people often don't start because they're not ready. They're not prepared enough. Their strategy isn't perfect. Their analysis isn't complete. Boring people don't worry about this. They're not smart enough to know how unprepared they are. So they just start, and they learn by doing. By the time the smart person is ready to start, the boring person has years of experience and momentum. Additionally, perfectionism creates perfectionist habits. The smart person spends their time trying to perfect what they have instead of shipping what they've built. They optimize endlessly. Meanwhile, the boring person ships their imperfect product, learns from feedback, and improves it. The boring person's imperfect product in the market beats the smart person's perfect product in development. This is true for everything: business, investing, career development, personal finance. The boring person's imperfect system that they actually execute beats the smart person's perfect system that they endlessly refine. The math is simple. 70% execution beats 100% plan. Because 100% of a plan is 0 execution. And 0 execution produces 0 results. But 70% execution produces 70% of results. And you can improve from there. Smart people keep trying to get to 100% before executing. Boring people execute at 70% and improve. After a few years, the boring person is at 95% through iteration. The smart person is still planning to get to 100%. The boring person wins because they actually did something. Here's the psychological core of the issue. Smart people's identity is tied to being smart. They've built their self-concept around intelligence. So they fear looking stupid. They fear making mistakes that would reveal they're not as smart as they think. This fear paralyzes them. A boring person doesn't have this identity investment. They're not trying to look smart. So they can take risks that look stupid. They can ask questions that seem simple. They can make mistakes without identity damage. And through these risks and questions and mistakes, They learn faster. A smart person won't ask a basic question about investing because it might make them look stupid. So they guess, and they guess wrong. A boring person will ask the basic question. They get the answer, they apply it, and they're ahead. Smart people often won't invest in certain things because they think they should invest in more sophisticated things. Their intelligence won't let them admit that an index fund is appropriate for them. It seems too simple, too boring. Boring people will invest in an index fund without hesitation because they don't need it to reflect their intelligence. It's just an investment vehicle. A boring person can own boring things without ego damage. A smart person needs to own sophisticated things that reflect their intelligence. But sophisticated often means worse returns. And boring often means better returns. Here's the pattern I see repeatedly. Smart people use their intelligence to come up with sophisticated reasons why they shouldn't take simple actions. I'm too smart for an index fund. That strategy is too basic for someone with my intelligence. I need something more sophisticated. And while they're looking for sophisticated strategies, boring people are quietly building wealth with index funds. The ego protection of seeming smart has cost the intelligent person massive amounts of money, because the right decision often seems stupid. Buying and holding index funds seems stupid compared to stock picking. Starting with a basic business seems stupid compared to waiting for the perfect opportunity. Starting to invest with $100 seems stupid compared to waiting until you have $10,000. But the stupid decision often produces better results than the smart decision. And the reason intelligent people miss this is because they can't do something that seems stupid. Their ego won't let them. A boring person doesn't have this problem. They can do stupid-seeming things because they're not invested in the image of being smart. And that freedom actually makes them smarter about money. The irony is profound. The intelligent person's need to appear intelligent makes them financially stupid. The boring person's lack of concern about appearing intelligent makes them financially intelligent. So here's where we stand. I've shown you 7 reasons why smart people end up poor, while boring people end up rich. Smart people overthink, while boring people execute. Smart people seek complexity, while boring people use simple systems. Smart people get bored, while boring people stay consistent. Smart people need to understand, while boring people just follow. Smart people trust themselves, while boring people trust systems. Smart people are perfectionist, while boring people are consistent. Smart people fear looking stupid, while boring people don't care. These aren't small differences. These compound into completely different financial realities. The good news is this: you don't have to choose. You don't have to be stupid to be wealthy. You don't have to be boring to build wealth. You can take the intelligence and use it to understand systems. Then you can take the boring consistency and actually follow them. You can take the smart person's analytical ability and use it to learn from others' research. Then you can take the boring person's willingness to execute and actually implement what you've learned. The best wealth builders combine both. They're intelligent enough to understand the principles, but disciplined enough to follow simple systems. They're smart enough to learn the rules, but boring enough to follow them consistently. They're intelligent enough to understand that complexity often fails, so they choose boring simplicity. This is the synthesis. This is what actually builds wealth. Not pure intelligence, not pure boredom, but intelligence applied to following simple, proven systems with boring consistency for decades. Most intelligent people can't do this. Their intelligence fights against the simplicity. Their ego fights against the boredom. Their impatience fights against the consistency. But if you can combine your intelligence with boring discipline, you'll build wealth that feels incomprehensible to people who are either all intelligence or all boredom. The combination is rare, and rarity is where real wealth lives. So the question is, are you smart enough to be boring? Are you intelligent enough to do something simple? Can you take your intelligence and use it to support consistency rather than undermine it? That's the real test. Not your IQ, but your ability to apply your intelligence to following boring systems. That's what separates the truly wealthy from everyone else.